Hi, and welcome back to Let's Break Bread, which is a little offshoot segment of We Take the Stairs. This is actually our last episode of the little shoot off because we're going to be filming season 2.
Yay!
And today we are joined by a very interesting guest. He's one of my favorite people, and what's most interesting is you're actually not going to see his face for reasons. So, wow. This guest is somebody that I have come to respect and really, really admire. He is maybe one of the most interesting people I've ever met. He's a very accomplished human being, but what's the most noteworthy is he's a really great father. And so I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I'm going to first say I'm Rachel.
Junior.
John?
John,
Hey, John.
today.
Tell us
John
a little
Doe.
bit about yourself.
I've done a lot of things. The reason for this is certainly a lot of things that I do now currently in positions of security, specialized security issues and projects. So I have to be very much under the radar. But what drew me to this whole concept and podcast was looking at raising a daughter. And I kind of raised a daughter more or less by myself from that, and how in this society, in this world, it's a difficult situation to do that. Let's get our kids there right. So I would like to share some of the things that worked and some of the things that did not work in my process.
Okay, well, what is the most interesting thing to me is, well, I know you personally, so it's like kind of cool that we've worked together and then we became friends. But like you had said, you have been parenting much of the time by yourself because your wife lives abroad and her business is abroad. So there have been a unique set of challenges because you're raising a female. And instead of, giving up, you have stepped forward and you have done it with a lot of trial and error and a lot of love. So on We Take the Stairs, we were examining this past season, the difficulties that men are facing today. And one of the biggest difficulties is the lack of fathers or the lack of the presence of a father in a home. So either men are absent or they're present, but there's no real presence. Just because you're there doesn't mean you're there. But you are not that person. You have basically laid it all on the line. You're who I call when I need guy advice. And you're one of the people that I know who has absolutely given it your all as a father. And that's one of the reasons that I have such respect for you is I've actually healed a lot of my own things that I've gone through as a young person with my father by watching you with your daughter. So what do you think was the moment, and where do you think that you sort of pivoted and said, okay, I have to step into this space where a lot of men say, I'm out. No, I'm sorry, this is getting too real. How did you persevere?
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words and the comments. And it's a struggle. And I also relied on you, Rachel, for many, and still do for many issues and counsel, because dealing with a daughter, she's heard me say this many times, they're kind of another species that I don't understand. So I relied on her to get the feminine view of things, but certainly tried to apply a lot of the principles and values that I accumulated over many years of doing different projects. And it's a challenge, many sleepless nights from that. We always want our kids to do well, and it's always a challenge. And, make mistakes and you move on. You make mistakes and move on. And it's a tough world for them out there. And hopefully we can give them the tool, or I've given my daughter some tools that's going to make her successful. Her career path, even though she's 19, is pretty much set for the next 10 years, and she has relished it. I gave her the opportunity to pick that path and then did everything I possibly could to support that pathway in ways, but also keep the rails in there so she didn't go down the wrong path of maybe doing things right or illegally.
Well, that's pretty unbelievable. I mean, because basically this season we've heard a lot of difficulty with men stepping up to the plate, and how other men, but now we're talking about a girl, but how other men are suffering because of it. In relation, relation to your own father, do you think that those are things that you learned from him, or did you have to step into a role that was completely sort of that blindsided you in
Oh,
this
I
respect?
figured everything out myself. My
Okay.
my parents were pretty much out of a lot of out of the picture, and I kind of figured it out. But luckily, I had some really good mentors along the road, in various aspects of my career, uh, and that really helped me to build the model that I needed to be able to get my daughter to where she is today and where she will be in the future.
When you say pretty much out of the picture, how absent was your father or mother?
Yes, uh, very absent, very satellite parents, if that's a word that I kind of maybe coined or I've heard. They were pretty much in the satellite picture, and I kind of figured it out. But again, by finding some really good people to kind of mentor and hang out with, I was lucky to have that. And I think one of the major aspects of that was the fact that they were militaristic. They had a military background. So that military background from them instilled values and different things into me that I took and expounded upon and helped me build who I was, and certainly helped me build who my daughter could be in the future. But again, it was all her decisions of what she made, and I still do that to this day, and did it last night. I said, where are we going? What are we doing for the summer? How are we structuring this, and where you want to go for a summer program? And I kind of let her lead it, but I had my idea where I wanted it to go. And thanks to Rachel and some of her counsel, I was able to get her to where I wanted her to be, but she thought she got herself there. So that's all. That's the secret. If you can get that nirvana every once in a while, that's a success as a parent.
I want to go back to Rachel's initial introduction. You said very specifically that John has been someone you've grown to love.
Yeah.
What was your initial idea of him from an honest perspective? Like your first time meeting him, how did you receive him?
John came into the room, and he's one of those people who commands a presence. And I was raised in a home. My father was in the Israeli military intelligence, and my mother is a German woman who is quite militant. I hate that word, but it's sort of like very type A, organized woman. And so I felt comfortable with John. I think a number of people had a hard time with his outright honesty, because he'll call you out to the carpet right then. But I was used to it, and I admired it. My favorite thing about John was how much I actually understood him, because he would give you the objective. He'd tell you this is what needs to be done, and you do it. And I guess I was used to rising to the occasion for those things, because both of my parents were either military minded or had been in the military. So I grew up that way with a lot of structure. And John provided a structure for the organization that we were volunteering in together. And he kept a lot of, balls juggling in the air. And I remember that. I just remember having a lot of respect for him. That is not a difficult style of personality for me, because I grew up around that personality. And I actually respect it, because it's not passive aggressive. It's just outwardly telling you, hey, this is what needs to happen. And while sometimes that's difficult to digest, I understand it, and he's right. And so he reminded me, actually, my younger son reminds me a lot of John in some ways, because he will say it how it is. And sometimes it's hard to digest the way that he talks, but I'm comfortable with it because he's usually right. It's just how he comes across. John is just a little bit older than my son, and he has learned how to maybe deliver it in a way that's a little bit better, and a little bit more palatable for people, other than just sort of the strict military style. But I was drawn to his structure and the way that he came across, which I find very interesting that you referenced the military, because in one of our previous episodes, we were talking about like why young men are going to church more, and why they're finding, their self in in that realm of comfort. And it was, one of the reasons was because people need that structure. They need to have that discipline. And so the Bible provides that for a lot of young men. And I find interesting that you found the structure and the discipline in the military. So in truth, I mean, we can sort of conclude, if we're looking at those two examples, that one of the things that men really truly need is the way, right? We need that structure. We need that thing that drives us to the next step. And I found interesting that you found that in the military, which many men do. Do you feel that some of the things that you've taken with you into your fatherhood came from the mindset of the military?
I think a lot of aspects of that. And with the military, there is a religious component to it. It's an underlying component. But in the military, there is, I see a little linkage between you're doing your service, but you are a spiritual person. So it links up that way. And I think it's something that isn't overtly talked about, but it's there.
Right.
And I think it helps a lot of people. But I also think you need to be the receptacle for that. So you need to have the ability to take that in. And a lot of people don't. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people who don't have that completeness to them or went seeking it and never let it happen, that's why we have a lot of issues with veterans on the street and the homelessness of that, and issues with that. I think people didn't let the whole process kind of work out for whatever reason that is. That's, as they would say, not my pay grade.
On the topic of characteristics, Rachel, you pointed out how you received John in his first appearance in your life. And you did point out the fact that his characteristics might have been hard for a lot of people to digest. And I think we could ping the idea around why women are kind of on this movement of toxic masculinity. And in previous conversations, we kind of talked around the idea of how men governs a household or a room. And a part of that is how sturdy or strong or structured we are in what we know and what our mindset is and what we want. And on the matter of biblical references, it is our duty as men to kind of lead a woman in the way that we want the household to go. Do you think that there is, one, do you see that as an issue? And two, do you think that there is a world where us as men could figure out a way to find balance rather than being that hard to digest at first? Let me put it that way.
The current genre of young men and women growing up, coming out of high school, in high school, getting into developing that final aspect of their personality development. Just an aside, I do have a master's degree plus 60, 80 credits in psychology, but that's a whole nother story. But you look at it in a way of how can you do this? And it scares the heck out of me watching many, many people growing up without that structure. And I see it and go like, wow, this person could be incredible, but they don't have the boundaries. They don't have the tools. Their toolbox is very empty. My mission was always to give my daughter more tools than she would ever need, and a tool for everything. And if she didn't have a tool, I'm putting the tool in the toolbox. That's difficult for parents because I think a lot of parents don't even have their own toolbox. So I think that's part of the issue. And I ran into a lot of parents in an organization where they were like these apps. They were still in their own world. They seemed to be more focused on them being them and something than them being a parent. And I think that's the thing that needs to be brought back into society and back into thought. Be a parent.
Do you think that a major part of being a parent is the nuclear family of it all, like growing up with both a mom and a dad? Do you think that makes any difference at all? Because you did point out the fact that there are some parents who don't have any tools as well. Like for you gained the tool probably through the military perspective because you said that you had a satellite parent, right? So for you had to kind of learn how to maneuver through life based on your mentors and or the military. do you think that there is a unique, important aspect of parenting where a child need to probably be in a household with a nuclear family, a father and a mom? Like for me, I had an absent father, though I had a great relationship with him nonetheless, but he never governed how to be a man. It was more so like, let me just keep tabs on you, because he was a satellite parent basically. But my mom kind of took the reign and became this mom and dad, if you may, but not so much like I could learn something from her. But do you think there is some importance to that for a parent to ensure or try their best to make a child grow up in a nuclear home?
I think you hit on a really great point. I, and this is kind of my own belief. It's not out of a book or anything. I think if you have two solid parents at home, you got 100% chance of developing well. If you have one parent, I think it drops to 50%. And you don't have any, I think your odds drop way, way, way down. It was either 1% of the 1%, probably. But I think most people that don't have that parental structure, don't have that built in throughout their formative years, they're going to have a tough time. And you got to, they got to get it somewhere. If they get it from the street or they get it from the wrong people, that's what's going to get them down a path. And we see it every day in society with people overreacting or doing things they shouldn't be doing or hurting a lot of other people. And I think a lot of that is because they didn't have that growing up. And that is such a key element in so many families that is missing in this society.
Yeah.
You could have two parents, but if they're not engaged, it's like not having
So
two
true.
parents.
So true. You talk a lot about your daughter, and I think you make a lot of reference to who she can be in the future. Are there any hiccups that you currently experience with the fact that you're in layman terms a single dad and trying your best to operate under the best parenthood that you possibly can with the tools that you have? What hiccups have you experienced with your daughter, especially the fact that you keep tapping into what she can be in the future? I would love to hear who she is now, and then your big hopes for her in the future as well. But like, what hiccups have you experienced through those?
Well, I've replaced 3 doors on her room through her teenage years.
3
Yeah,
doors.
3. I took the door out 3 times because we had a little rule. We don't lock the door. You lock the door, Dad knocks. Okay, Dad knocks again. The third is not a knock. The third is a kick. So I have destroyed more than one door. I think the count was 3 doors, couple locks. So that kind of worked itself out. If there's no door, there's no door to shut. So we worked through that. I don't know where that parenting style came from, but that seemed to work. Where she is now is a extremely well-developed individual, mentally, physically. She's at levels far beyond what most people her age group would be. Academically, she skipped 2 years of school already in college.
Wow.
And she has progressed in her career toolbox, getting a lot of things. And she is, and I can't divulge too much because she's going to be in a very interesting position with different things, maybe following some of Dad's pathways. But she has the tools. She's extremely successful in those tools and what she does with them academically, socially. As parents, a lot of people grow up, or as people grow up, they say they worry about your daughters. We worry about our daughters, especially as fathers. And she said to me, Dad, don't worry about me. Worry about the person that might bother me.
Mm-hmm.
So she has a lot of tools in the toolbox to protect herself and her environment, her world. You know, we deal in a thing called, I don't think called a 3-foot bubble. A 3-foot bubble, I can control everything really easily. And then I work on the 21-foot bubble with that area. And that's the area of influence that threats can come in. I don't want a threat to come into. So she's trained in those kind of aspects of looking at things that can affect her, but she knows that very disciplined. I mean, you look at her wall and she's got a calendar for a month. It's not, okay, do this today, do this tomorrow. It's like, 0600 I'm doing this, 0800 I'm doing that. I mean, literally, it's a 10-hour day is diagrammed out for the whole month. She's like boom, 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 and does that, and helps her accomplish a lot. And I think many young men and women don't have that type of discipline, and we don't give them the tools. If you don't have it, they're not going to do it. So and once people see, oh my God, I can accomplish so much just by simply organizing my thoughts and my time from that. My only problem with her, she tries to do too much. I got to reel it back in. Let's take that out. Come on, let's take that. Because we go through the schedule. What are you going to do? We analyze, but we talk about it. We let her share her feelings of what she wants to do and how she's going to get to that goal. And then I look at, and I say things like a lot. One of my favorite expressions are, what can I do to support you to get to that goal?
That's nice.
But if it's not a good goal, I'm not supporting it.
Yeah.
It could be financially, it could be any particular way to do that. It's there. What can I do? You get to a point, when they rise up above that, you're just kind of there as a support. She said, Dad, you're in charge. You're my biggest fan and in charge of my fan club. And I said, yeah, that's right. She goes, you're kind of like my manager. So you get to a point and you're kind of like your kid's manager.
Yes, if you've put in the time and earned that privilege. So what's interesting is, so you kind of have talked about the guy version of your relationship with your daughter. You're talking about the dad side. So I know, though, some specifics, like the fact that you actually sit and do listen, and you do concern yourself with her feelings, which can be very difficult for some dads or husbands with their wives or whatever. Was interesting to me in an observation about men, personal observation. Sorry, I'm just making that sort of stereotype, is men do often create space for their daughters to share emotion that sometimes you'll not hear them as much creating for their wives. So it is very interesting to me to see that, because you see that it's there, and maybe we've just become seasoned, and with our children, it's a different kind of love, a selfless love. But one of the things that I admire most about your relationship with Emma is not just the sort of direction you've given her, as a father, and maybe even just like a professional counsel, because she is kind of walking in your footsteps, but you also listen to her, and you create space for her to be who she is. Because I know some of the stories, and on the flip side, she was being emotional, and it wasn't going very well, and you're like, I need to get into this room, and she's no, because she is sassy, she's awesome. And so it wasn't just like this scared girl. I don't think she was ever scared for a minute. I think there's a healthy fear, right? Like, kids have to have a healthy fear of someone. We all do, right? But she was never scared. She always felt brazen. She loved you, knew you loved her, and all people push their limits, especially teenagers. But what do you think it was about being a dad to a daughter that made you willing to stop, get out of that sort of sorry guy comfort zone where you just sort of don't like the vulnerability of feelings, and allowed for that?
That's very interesting and a difficult question.
Yep. Sorry, John.
I think it was some sort of self-therapy, if you break it all down. Now I put the psychology hat on, that maybe this gave me something I didn't have. And I saw it in some day. Every once in a while I'd get the little blip, that, oh, maybe I'm giving or doing something that I wish had been done for me. So that was maybe an underlining component of a lot of the things. And when you look back, and hindsight is always easy. So when you look back at different things and you look for the why, do that. I don't look back too much. I'm really focused on the present and the future. I always believe you can only control the present and the future. You can't do anything about the past. So don't live in the past. That's always been kind of my mantra.
What advice would you have for, we talked about the nuclear family, and ultimately it would be great to have like an Ozzie and Harriet situation. I don't know if everybody here knows who Ozzie and Harriet is, but it was like the perfect nuclear family in the 50s. And, he went to work and she dressed in her dress at like 5 a.m. and brought him his coffee and the kids were, "Hi, Dad." I mean, sure, that would be really great, but we're living, not in the 50s. And even then it was a little bit interesting. But these roles of parents are not as defined. And we've seen over these decades women going to work and men, some of them staying home, some men going to work. The nuclear family is very different than what we were taught or what we even think about. And in fact, there isn't often a nuclear family. It's a single parent. You and I are very similar and we mirror each other in our parenthood, and we find ourselves sometimes co-parenting different children. Obviously, you have questions, I have questions, but it is not easy. I find myself on the receiving end of a lot of anger from my sons. They feel like they are missing that component of a man in their life, giving them direction, and I usually get, the raw end of the deal there. But what advice would you give to single moms and single dads for how we can push forward and still raise emotionally and mentally healthy children, despite the fact that there isn't that second parent at home? Because a lot of people are suffering through that.
I think there's two parts to that question, as I see it. One is, I think now we're dealing with the COVID kids. I think COVID did a lot of psychological, developmental damage to a lot of people in different ways, where they were thrown back into that home environment and kids only experience growth through their computer screen. And I think that was very damaging from that. I may be just projecting things, but I saw that and kind of getting through that. I think it also stunted the growth of many kids because they weren't able to get that social interaction. They weren't able to get that social ability they need to be able to mature and grow and become something. And the other part of your question is, how do you get that back? I think everybody needs a Rachel, and on their speed dial, maybe somebody you can call, not professionally, but somebody that you see gets it and has similar thoughts and values that you have, and tap into them, because they're going to be able to share something with you and say, "Hey, I did this, and maybe try that," but also understand that you're going to fail. You're going to make your mistakes, and you're going to have to back up, take 2 steps back to take that step forward. And as long as you can accept that, and your child can accept it, you can accept it. I told my daughter, I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to mess things up. And when I do, feel free to call me out on it. Let's discuss it and let's move forward. And that's very difficult as a parent to say, "Oh, oops, I did it again. I made a mistake. And I think I'm going to try this," because I've made the same mistake more than once, and I've got called out on it. And I'm like, and be a man about it. Okay, I messed up. Okay, now how can I fix it? That's kind of how I look at it. What can I do to fix this mistake or this situation, and how can we do it for the betterment of the child? And take my feelings out of the equation. So sometimes you need to take you out of the fix and see, how can I fix it for them from that? And then check your ego at the door.
Well, that's good.
I think it's safe to say that your daughter probably have given you an experience of a lifetime, and that she's opened up so many doors for you to even have a conversation like this beyond what you even could have asked for. And that's pretty noble of you, to the way how you allow your daughter to experience life. And just based on the initial question, I think it's safe to also say that you guys have worked through the hiccups, and now you guys are at a place where you can talk about the things that you are doing wrong in her perspective and how to explain that through. I do want to ask a question as well, regarding, do you ever think that she has experienced you in a way where she feels like your love for her is in jeopardy? Because you also pointed out the fact that some things you're not going to support her on, even if especially when it's not a good dream. And that's something that a lot of parents are remedying. I'm not a parent, but I'm just speaking from a child perspective, in that you have your way of seeing life and a child would have their own way of seeing life. And you not supporting them on their journey of whatever dream and aspirations they have for themselves, especially with how the world is transitioning? Do you ever feel as if she thinks that your love for her is in jeopardy if you do not support the things that she wants to do? And even if or if not, how would a parent remedy that to bring them back to what you said, the why? I do this because I love you. It's not because I don't love you. How do you kind of work through that big issue? Because I think those things does affect one's relationship, more than just a career, more than just, living a life that is truly great. Everyone needs companionship, and your daughter is a companion for you because she's taught you so much, right? So I think I would love to hear your perspective on that aspect.
And again, another complicated question here on take the stairs.
We take
Yeah.
the stairs.
We take the stairs. On that, so it's kind of a moving target sometimes, and it's not going to be that. But I think the communication is the key. You just break it down, communicate a lot, and don't be too judgmental on it. And say, okay, I might want this, but I really instilled this. I think this is the core. Hopefully, answers your question. Is everything is okay to talk about it and share our feelings. I might not, and I told her, I'm not going to agree with some of the stuff, and you're not going to agree with some of mine, but let's find that commonality, that common ground that can benefit you. And she knows it's all about her and getting her where she wants to go, to her end goal, which is very clear. And we have it up, it's on the wall, and I can't share it. But it's going to be there. It's there in a position. But that communication thing, we still talk probably 2 to 4 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not me instigating all of them. Some days I don't call her. If I don't call her, I get called and get yelled at. Why didn't you call me? Dad, why didn't you call? You called me today? What happened? Something wrong? No. And, it's kind of that give and take, back and forth. But communication, sincere communication, not, how's the weather? Did you see a cow? Or what? It's not that stuff. Tell me how you feel. How you feeling? What's going on? Tell me the good stuff, but also tell me the bad stuff. And that's, sometimes I see kids or hear kids talk to parents, all they hear is the fluff, right?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
I don't want fluffy. If I want fluffy, I'm going to buy a little dog. So I don't want the fluff. I want the guts. Give me the good stuff. Good, bad, ugly. I take it all. And I've got the good, bad, and ugly. And I take it all in, and we work out a solution. And I think when they feel that they're part of the solution, and I've told you so out of my vocabulary. I think that's really important as a parent. I told you so should be gone from your brain. And if you can take that out, you now can communicate on a different level.
Communication is a two-end street. I think I would love for you to talk about how much of yourself are you being honest about too. Like, you've gone through a lot, and it's kind of hard because sometimes that child use certain things as ammunition, especially when they're trying to make their point. So how much of yourself are you putting out there to her so that she could also put everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifference? Because I think, and that's from someone who is not a parent yet, you can't tell a child everything, right? It skews their perspective on who you are. It also allows them to know too much. Is there a point by which you're like, hey, love ya, want you to always be honest with me, want you to tell me everything, but I can't tell you all the things that I've experienced?
And another great question here on taking the stairs. Yeah, and we kind of have a code phrase, and we can either us are free to use it. So that means, okay, we've got to a point and we're done. We're blocked for whatever reason, and you can't use it every time, but it's there. It's kind of your your old Monopoly get out of jail free card. It stops at if this is said, we're done. And she gets it and I get it from that. I get more than she gets, but yeah, I think you have to have and let them have that boundary. But you, as a parent, need to have that boundary. You cannot be your child's best friend.
Mm-mm.
You need to be your child. And I say to people, be a parent. And I've said to some parents, to get a certain part of an anatomy. I've said to male parents, you need some anatomy here, and you got to stand up, and you have to be. You need to be this. And if you're not, you're doing yourself and your child a disservice.
What's interesting, I'm actually going to tag in here. What's interesting about the question you asked, Junior, is that the answer is not simple. Kids are a lot smarter and they know you a lot better than you even understand. So they know when you walk into the room, there's that silent communication. Your kids know you better than anybody else. They've grown with you. They know when something's wrong, and they'll ask you point blank. And if you lie to them, then you become part of the problem. So it's not as easy as you think to keep things. But there are things that you don't want them to know. Sorry, I'm a little emotional. There are things you don't want them to know. So there is a kind of a silent, like, okay, like, don't ask more. I have a phrase with both my boys. I'm like, I have boundaries with you guys. I mean, they obviously have boundaries with me, but there's less with me. Like, you come into my room at any time. I knock on their door. You know what I mean? There's a very different thing there. But with communication, they're brilliant people. They know you so much more. They're looking at your moods. They're looking at your eyes. My boys know me, no matter how much I try to hide. And if you don't tell them, then they grow up sometimes thinking that that's okay. That whatever they already know is wrong and they're feeling is okay. And that ends up doing a lot more damage and being more of a detriment. So sometimes you have to be a little bit more honest, but reserve the information because you're not their friend. But you are more important than a friend. You are their guide. And that is a very, very good question, and one that always, as a mother, has taken me by surprise because I'm always shocked at how much they already know.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we're not here for the easy conversations. And I ask that question because I know how compact it is. I'm coming from a child perspective, and I mean, I could be personal here. My mom went through domestic violence with my dad, and I've seen that firsthand. So, of course, I know my mom personally, where I know when she's hurting. I know when she's happy. I know when she's not. I know when she's trying too hard. But she couldn't allow me to know those stuff because she feared how that will make me see my father. So I do understand the complication of that, but I think it's so important to have a conversation around because I think that's why so many males are suffering. We experience life through our parents a lot of the time, whether single or nuclear. And it's hard for us to truly, genuinely have a connection if we feel like there are heavy barriers. And as we grow up and go into relationships, we do come to a point where we have these hard situations. And our first initial reaction is to do what we were taught as a young child, right? Just shut up and move on. Just shut up and get it over. But you as well have had conversations where you seem to have a good balance about it all. You kind of, I won't say figured it out, but you're continuing to learn how to break down those barriers. And I think that's kind of one of the entry barriers for men in society as we get into our relationship, because life is not just about your career. Life is not just about being a good person. Life is about relation. Life is about relationship. And in order to get to that point, we have to understand how to break those entry level barriers to really talk about the things that we need to talk about, which is why I'm asking these hard questions, because it's going to take emotional truth, but it is necessary for us to talk about. So thank you guys for even expressing that.
And the reason that I really felt very strongly about starting this podcast and bringing Junior with me along the way is because I'm watching as communication, because of our phones or because of the things that sit in front of us every day, communication is actually becoming almost obsolete in some ways. Actual conversation, you look at, I go to a restaurant and I see a lot of young people and they're on a date and they're on their phone on a date. And then like one time I was in the middle of Asheville, North Carolina, and I realized they were texting each other at the date. And then like she was then text, and I'm so sorry to the people that I was just like watching, but I was like awestruck. I'm like, what is happening right now? What is this communication? But this is, our phones, our computers, it's becoming our comfort. Instead of sitting across from you and saying, look, this is how I'm feeling. I don't like this date. I'm texting you now. It's more comfortable. But we're taking away something extremely, extremely important, and that is connection. And all human beings need connection. I don't care if you love Siri and your AI best friend is, the person you talk to every day. That is not comfort. That is something in your mind that is being fulfilled briefly. We need each other. And the fact that as men and women, especially because you and I have referenced it, like I need your input. And I know sometimes you need my input. So we have a connection and we are as human beings working to communicate. Even if we are different in some ways, we help one another. But there is a huge, huge breakdown in society that is just continuing to, like at a locomotive speed, keep going. And that is the fact that men and women are splintering and they're no longer addressing their need for each other. In fact, they're attacking one another for who they are at their very base and who they are in their core. What do you think about this breakdown in communication, and where do you think we need to start to bridge these gaps?
Great question. I think, and I go back to the COVID, I think COVID caused a lot of this, where we could only communicate on our phone. Kids could only communicate on their phone in their room because they had X amount of time. And once that broke down, it took a while to kind of permeate through all society that you could do that. The phones are probably the best thing you could have and the worst thing you could have. And when I talk to people about kind of being safe and security issues, I tell people that will save your life and that will also cause you to lose your life. It's how you use that tool. And I think using it unfiltered, and the biggest thing I've heard recently is many schools are not letting the kids have phones in the classroom, check it at the door from that, or the phone, no phone time kind of stuff is important, especially earlier on. I see kids, little kids, on a phone, and that scares the heck out of me from that. We joke, and I joke to my daughter, I say, everything you see on TikTok is not real. You got that, right? And we joke about that, but I think how our children are getting the information from a behavioral standpoint, and I guess I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but this influencer craze, I look at some of these influencers and who they are or what their background is. I don't know. They couldn't influence me to take out the trash. I think sometimes you've got people who label themselves as something or an expert or something on this, and they really don't have it. They've just decided that the internet has crowned them this. And person was going in all these restaurants and just not paying for anything, said, oh, I'm an influencer, I don't need to pay for anything. Well, you do. I'm an influencer is not a get out of jail free card for anything. It's simply sometimes I think people do it just to feel good about themselves, but they've got no guts inside to make it real or ever get me to listen to them.
I think there's a huge conversation that need to be had with one, how easily we are influenced. Mm-hmm. And do you think that we've seen this epidemic happening before even COVID? if we did, because phones and technology has been something that is developing even prior to COVID, even new age mothers and fathers, when a child cries, they give them the tablets. This was before COVID. Um, with respect to how both of you guys' parenting style is, do you think that there is a space by which we can use this idea of phone technology to really figure out a way to find communication valuable on the phones, but also still find time for human connection? A child's life is spent mostly at school, of which their communication is something you can't control. One can only hope that at school they're taking away the phones, whatever. But a child is very clever. They will figure out a way to get their phone in the room either way. So do you think that there is a way to create good communication through technology? Because technology is only growing. AI is only going to get better. We could sit here and talk and fight about how we need more human connection, but the truth is the world is going in the complete opposite direction. How can we remedy that to figure out ways to have healthier communication through technology, but still find human connection time?
Well, I think it's not how to find. We have to find it.
Right.
If we don't, our society and this next generation is going to be in big trouble. But I think people are finally now looking at it and saying, "Oop, I got to fix this." I think a lot of people are starting to. I think the movement is starting with parents, and to say, "Okay, I got to fix this. I can't have an iPhone kid. I need a kid who has an iPhone." So how do we do that? I don't know if I have the answer. I think the answer is somewhere. It hasn't evolved yet. Technology evolved so fast, and the sociability of parenting is trying to catch up. So it's catching up a little bit, but there's still a big gap, and that gap has to be narrowed. I don't think you can slow down technology. It's moving, and it's flying. So maybe we need to look at how we, as parents and society and the sociability of everything, how can we bridge that gap to catch it up? Because it's not going to slow down.
This is not a gender war. Let me say that first and foremost before I say what I'm going to say. And because this season and the Breakbed series is about men in society, do you think that male are more affected by this growth of technology? Because from the beginning of time, men have always been known to not have the greatest communication. So with this growth of technology, do you think that male are probably more likely to be affected than any other gender?
Don't know. I think we're in territory that it's just bizarre when it come with when you look at it. Where's it going to go? I don't know. But it's got to go. It's got to be fixed. I think it needs to start in pre-K, and we just need to
Toddler.
Yeah, pre-K. It needs to be kicked up the food chain, but we got to build from the bottom. It's like building a house. We better build this thing. We better refix this build on the bottom right now, because if not, those, the little munchkin going to be bigger, and they're not going to have the tools they need. So it needs to start somewhere. And as I see it, you got to start there and hopefully catch up with that gap.
I actually think we are, for the first time in relation to that question, all equally unbalanced. Women are doing just as poorly as men are doing with the communication and the constant frenzy of social media. Again, I'm fine to not be popular. I don't want to influence anyone. I would like to remind people that you are there on this world as a part of it, as a piece of a puzzle to think for yourself. And we have forgotten that. We have allowed other people into our minds, teaching us how to dress, teaching our children what to say, teaching us what to eat, what to drink. And we're forgetting our own power of choice, whether that be in politics or in relationships. And for the first time, this whole podcast is about how human beings are not really great with moderation. We are all equally broken and irreparably so at this moment. on the social media scale, because it's women are yelling just as loud as men are yelling. And these algorithms are literally here knowing what we're looking at, teaching us what we want to hear as opposed to what somebody else might think. And that is where the breakdown of society is, I think, really, really starting to like steamroll ahead. This isn't like a slow rolling, locomotive. This is like the tri-rail, like it's speeding really fast. This is a bullet train. And no one's like, hey, I can't get off. Even if you want to jump off, people are unable to get off of this. I think men and women are equally affected. And I think that's purposeful. I think they're trying to divide us, whoever the they is, whoever's decided that this is what we need to have in our life. It's not like promoting family goodness. I mean, we're not watching Family Matters anymore. Carl isn't the dad who comes in and solves the problem. We are letting the world teach our children. So I'm going to give an example that I did. I remember when the boys were young, we were on the cusp of everyone having the iPad. And I remember telling my mom, like, please don't get them an iPad. Okay, she got him an iPad. That's a grandma for you. And I remember that in restaurants, it was hard to have two little kids. Oh my gosh, two boys especially, two toddlers, But I remember reading that boys have a difficult time in SAT prep. I know, I was preparing all along. And SAT, and when they're writing their SATs, boys would say, they look at a picture. The tree is green, it is tall. That is what a boy would write. And the girl would write, this beautiful maple tree has 7,000 leaves and the 65 colors of green. Girls are much more expressive and the boys are less expressive. And I said, okay, I'm going to tackle that today. So every time we went to a restaurant, we played this game, Name That Noun. And we would use words like, okay, we need to describe 3 adjectives and we're going to name the noun. And while other people were on their devices, I was having conversations with my kids. And we had the funniest things that happened. My younger son, David, when he was really little, was like, okay, I have a hint. It has a tiny big neck and, stuff like that. And these are memories that we still talk about. But getting back to, is there a point of moderation or a point that we can take it back? You do have the answer. It's how you've lived your life with your daughter. Whether or not it's comfortable, you made it happen. And as parents or people in relationships, whether it's friendship or whether it's relationships in a marriage, we have to work. Relationships are really hard. And we have to take a step back and make time to communicate. Otherwise, we are going to continue to splinter. It's a choice. It's not an influencer. It's not, oh, well, maybe I'll make time. You do make time. It's hard to sit with kids at a table. Kids can be annoying. If I can be annoying to myself, I assure you somebody else can be annoying to me. But you have to. You owe it to them. We owe it to each other.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So it makes me think of something. So one of the phrases I use when I do a lot of different training programs, I tell people, you have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Shut up and listen. And you're going to be a lot further along. That was taught to me and kind of ingrained in me a long time ago. And I carry that every day. And so I just kind of shut up and listen. And then make the interactions that way. And I don't think we do a really good job of shut up and listening.
Yeah. You think so? I think everyone is doing a good job at shutting up and listening because no one talks anymore.
Well,
everyone is just being told.
Well, that shut up
is just being told through influence what to do. And the irony of life is that we are the ones who mediate what society is supposed to feed to us, right? Whatever we grow to like a lot more of is what becomes business. It's what the world starts to push. So, I mean, do you think, and just based off how life is going, do you think that, and I don't know your faith base, but do you think that there is a huge component of life where everyone is trying to be a god? Everyone wants to take such strong stance on who they are, how they want to maneuver in this world, and what they have control over. And that creates this idea of, I will choose who influence me, which is great because biblically talks about free will, and that's amazing. But the problem is that we take it so far because we're so extreme in our way of living, that it's more than just to be free-willed. It's about, I need to be full control. I need to be the God. Do you think that there's a huge God complex for whichever gender you are? Do you think that there's this part of us where we're like, I want to be God. I want to have that big control.
Yeah, I think people do. I think you hit on a really good point. That people want that influence or that whatever it is. They want to be known. It's kind of the me syndrome. Look at me. I want my own podcast, or I want my own. No offense here.
It's great. I don't have my own podcast. I share.
Okay. Look at me, or I have my own reality something, or I have X amount of followers, or any of that other stuff. I want to lead. I told my daughter, I said, you need to lead people. You need to be a good leader. And that's not easy. And there's a lot of components to that. A good leader isn't somebody that has a bunch of hits on a podcast or an internet set, or they have X amount of followers. You need to be a good leader for the right reasons.
Yeah, interesting though, the underlying theme here, even with social media, as you've said it, is it's actually weirdly come together. Young men are going to church because they need structure and they need a way. People in parenting turn to certain things because they need structure and a way. The military provides structure and a way. And to some degree, influencers are providing structure
And a
way, but taking away accountability and our own accountability to ourselves and to one another. Oh, so-and-so dresses like that. She could be dressing in nothing. I mean, I don't know if you know that story about the emperor's new clothes and the king is naked and everyone's like, oh my goodness, we're going to pretend he has on this beautiful silk garment. And the kid, this was one of my dad's favorite stories. The king is naked. He's like literally walking around naked and everyone's pretending that the clothes are there. Society does a great job of pretending if someone says, hey, look, the atrocities that human beings have been capable of over time just because they think this is what the way to go. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make what that influencer is saying correct. So if there's anything that really comes together and like, I'm hearing like a thing in my mind that's, my whatever's on play in my head, it's take accountability for yourself. Remember, you're your own individual self. It doesn't matter what the world is telling us. You know what's best for you. You know what's best for your relationships, and you know what's best for your children. Do it. Talk to your children. Talk to each other.
Here's. I think that's a very, very hard stance. Here's
what
why.
do you mean? Okay.
And
individualism, like as far as knowing what's best for you.
Yeah, because I think that we oftentimes don't know what's best for us because of how information is being fed to us. The problem is we take a feeling and that feeling gets justified by an influencer, and then the accountability is now off of us, which is what you talk about. And it's now like, oh, I could do what I want when I want to do it. I think that's the biggest issue we face in society. We don't know what's best for us. You need a father to say, hey, let's talk about this. You shouldn't close your door when you're in this household because I know that you tend to probably do things that are not good for you. But in your hearts of heart, you feel like it's good for you, right?
Okay.
We need someone to tap into us, and which is why I feel like a lot of this personal situation is so hard for people because you have to face accountability. It's like you think you're a good person, but you're not. Here's why you might not be a good person. And this is why Christianity and Christ and God is so hard for people, because there's one thing about the Bible, it never changes. Right. It stays consistent and it tells you a right and a wrong. And people don't want to hear how I feel is wrong. People don't want to hear that. It's the hardest thing for people to receive that. Even if you feel, because in your mind, in your feeling, you're doing good. So I think it's a hard stance to say, you know what's best for you, because we don't know. I don't think I know what's best for me. I'm only living life based on my experiences that my father and mom gave me, that I lived in Jamaica, in Kingston, Jamaica, where violence was heavy. that's how I truly understand life. But I need someone to come in to give me perspective where it's like, oh my God, all this time I thought that I could be a parent who is ha 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 and it will work. But hearing you, I'm like, wow, I didn't know what's right. Now this is a whole different world. I think that is exactly why we need this, right? We can't want to be God. We don't know what's best for us. We need people to come in and truly change our perspective a little bit, have a worldly view on life, and not condemn anyone for or personal thing, but like really hearing them and understanding truly who they are and what is happening so we could change each other, because that's how we're going to grow in reality. So don't feel like I'm going against you, but I think it's a hard stance to take, to say we know what's best for ourselves. Because honestly, like even for
in the
you,
realm of the influencers trying to teach
no,
us.
it's the same thing, right? Like even for you, as grown as you are, your daughter has taught you how to like truly speak about things. And you said like, wow, I didn't even know I needed that. But you got to a place where it's like, whoa, because I was able to open up and be fully honest and transparent, I am now changed. Because if it was up to you, it's your way or the highway.
Right. So I guess we have to be careful who we let in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great idea. You look at it kind of as the macrocosm, this big macro thing. Don't live in the big macro, live in the micro and get the right components, and then you got a chance. You got a fighting chance. But this big macro thing, you're going to just floating around. It's like dump me in the middle of the ocean. It's going to be,
Yeah.
you're going to have a problem. Put me in a little swimming pool. It's a little easier to have a little pool. But, get out of the ocean, get into the pool, get into the wading pool, whatever you need is comfortable for you. But that big ocean out there will get you every time.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of
a
drugs.
great conversation.
No, this has been good. So at the end of each session, we do something called a we take. And it's just what we've basically taken from the conversation. So if you don't mind to participate, Junior, do you want to go first?
Oh, for sure. For me, my retake is in this conversation's reaffirmed when we were talking about communication, and I said, be careful who communicates to you, because it's going to be what you communicate. I think that kind of brings everything together for me. Like, we have to watch the kind of people we let in, as you said, and obviously we all want to be good people. And we all want to live life in a way that everyone can understand and receive well. It starts with who we let in. So we have to watch who communicates to us so it does not become the communication that we don't want.
Yeah. Do you want me to go next, or did you have a...
I can go.
Let's go.
I look at it like water, drinking water. I'm not going to drink the ponds out, or puddle out there. I need it filtered. I need to get to the right good stuff. I need to filter out the crap. And if I can get the crap filtered out, I can get something healthy that I can take in, and it can get me to where I want to go.
Absolutely.
Wow, like the living water.
Good.
So my we take from this entire side segment has been that, first and foremost, I love having conversation with people, with just human beings. It's nice to take in different perspectives and understand. And if we're aligned, in my personal opinion, with God, then you can check in with yourself, because you do have that higher source and you know what you need to be doing because you have that. If that's not something you're in alignment with, in truth, we do, like you were saying, have to make sure that whoever is in our head is, in fact, giving us positive messaging to be our very best self. And in relation to parenting, it is very hard. Trust me, I understand the plight of the single parent, and I understand the plight of the family home that isn't, perfect, because no one's really, really perfect here on this planet. But I know we're trying to be, but all we can do is try. But your kids, they're really the most important thing that you have. They are your legacy. and you have to treat them like the gifts that they are. I was actually just like, I was feeling kind of sad for myself this morning as I was walking, because I realized what a gift my sons were, and I feel so like unworthy of them. I feel sometimes like I wasn't good enough for them, because I've made mistakes. And no matter what I do, I will own those mistakes, but it still hurts them. And that part of life, really, it takes a piece of my soul and it hurts. So I still will continue to try to understand people, and for me, men, because I have 2 boys that I'm really trying to raise to be good men. So I will continue this, and I will continue to try to have hard conversations, because for those people who can't have hard conversations or are unwilling, maybe if they can listen to a difficult conversation that resonates with them, even one of the episodes, if something hits and it really leads them to a better understanding of where they really need to be going, I think that it's worth it. So thank you both. And John, thank you so much for
Thank you so much.
coming on here.
Glad to be here. Yeah, I think your message is very resounding. I hope it gets out there, and you don't give up.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We'll see you next time.